Hello students, today I am going to take a biology chapter. I'm going to take transportation from the chapter life process. So we will see about the structure of the heart in today's lesson. You have already learnt about the components of blood. So can you tell me which are the components of the blood? The components of the blood we have this RBC, WBC, platelets and the plasma. So I'm sure you would be thorough with the functions too. The functions of RBC is to transport oxygen and WBC is to produce immunity for our body, and yes, plasma of course for transporting the minerals, the digested food, and the antibodies, etc. And also we have the platelets, which helps in clotting during the when you have a wound. So in today's lesson we will see the structure of the heart and its function. So when you talk about transportation, here we are going to see how the blood that is in our body, how is it transported to all the parts of the body. So I am sure that you have been learning from your lower classes about the function of the heart and how its importance. So when you talk about transportation, the major organ, that is the heart, plays an important role in transportation. So today first let's see how the heart is divided, or how is the structure. So when you talk about, and then I will be drawing a flow chart of the blood flow. So now this is the diagram which is given in your textbook. Now you can see there is a blue part and a red part. I would like to give this explanation in a very simple way so that it's easy for you to understand. So we have the blue part and the red part. So I hope you know why are these colors given in a different way. So we have in our body, we have when you are breathing, we breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide, right? Yes. So here when you talk about this blue, this color, here this side we have the deoxygenated blood, and this part we have the oxygenated blood. So this deoxygenated blood actually is for you to this is a blood which gets oxygenated, and that actually the lungs helps a very important role in that. Now when you talk about the structure, now we have here a few arteries and a few the name of the veins which you have to learn. So here can you see this? This is the Actually, this is the vein that is the largest vein in our body, and this is known as vena cava. Now, when you talk about first let me actually call out the parts of the heart, and then I will draw the flow chart. How the blood is, the direction of blood happens while circulation. So when you talk about the heart, we have this is connected to the lungs. So because the lungs helps in oxygenation of the blood. Now this vena cava, the largest vein, actually carries the impure blood or the deoxygenated blood from all the parts of the body. Now we have the two parts. We have the vena cava that carries the blood, that is the deoxygenated phlegm, from the upper part of the body, and this is the vein that carries the impure blood or the deoxygenated blood from the lower part of the body. Now this will be above the shoulder and this is below. So here what happens is, when this deoxygenated blood is carried by the vena cava, it is brought into the right atrium. Atrium, the other name of atrium is auricle, or the right auricle. And see, when you when you're drawing even the structure of the heart, this will be your right side and this will be your left side. So it is brought into the right auricle, and then from the right auricle what happens is, when during this time the auricle actually will be relaxed. Why is it relaxed? So that it is ready to get the blood which is carried by the vena cava from all the parts of the body. And this blood has to flow into the right ventricle. Now you have, this is, we have four chambers here. This is the right auricle, and from the right auricle it gets into the right ventricle. Now when it is getting into the right ventricle, this actually contracts. The right ventricle, sorry, the right atrium contracts, and when it contracts, see, when you're contracting this blood, it flows into the right ventricle. Now this actually, the right ventricle is in order for always please note that the flow of the blood is unidirectional. Unidirectional means one direction. Always the blood flows in one direction, it will not flow back. So for that we have a can you see here, this is actually a valve. This is known as the, this actually we have a valve here. This actually helps in getting the blood into the ventricle. So you don't have to learn much in detail about the name of the valves. Here we have the tricuspid and the bicuspid valve, etc. But here you only have to know that there is a valve here that helps in the blood flow from the atrium or the auricle, that is the right auricle, into the right ventricle. So when this flow happens, this part contracts and this part relaxes. So when this part relaxes, that means it is ready to get the blood from the auricle, here from the right atrium. So as the blood reaches the right atrium, this actually valve, there's a valve here, it shuts. Okay, and then what happens is, from here, from the right ventricle, it has to be sent to the lungs. Now I'm sure that you have learned about the role of the lungs in that is a double circulation, that is systemic circulation. That is actually, you I'm sure that you would have learned in grade your class 9. So what happens is, this deoxygenated blood will be sent to the lungs for oxygenation. So that is why you have an arrow here. So from here, this is actually again you have a blood vessel, that is, the deoxygenated blood is carried to the lungs. So now lungs by the artery, that is by the pulmonary artery. And please note that this pulmonary artery is the only one artery that carries impure blood. Normally veins carry impure blood and arteries carry pure blood, but this is the only one artery that carries deoxygenated blood. So where is it being carried? It is carried to the lungs for, this is carried to the lungs for oxygenation. For oxygenation. Now what happens is, when this is carried to the lungs for oxygenation, the in the lungs, what happens is, when you're breathing, you breathe in oxygen and then you breathe out carbon dioxide. So there, this blood, it actually gets mixed with the oxygen that is taken in and gets converted into oxygenated blood. So then what happens, this oxygenated blood is carried back by the pulmonary vein. Now again we have here one exception, that is the pulmonary vein is the only one vein that carries oxygenated blood. So this, after oxygenation in the lungs, the blood is carried back into the heart. Why is it being carried back to the heart? Because from the lungs, you cannot, the lungs cannot pump the oxygenated blood to all the parts of the body. So the pumping work is done by the heart. So it has to be brought back into the heart by the pulmonary vein. Now when it is brought back, it is brought into the left atrium or the auricle, that is the left side. That is why the color has changed here. Why has the color changed? Because it is turned or converted into oxygenated blood. And here can you see again, there is a valve that helps actually the blood flow from the left auricle into the left ventricle. That is why you can see the arrow. So here again what happens is this this atrium gets ready to receive the blood from the lungs, and from the lungs it gets into the ventricle. Here again when the flow happens, first when the blood is received from the lungs, this relaxes, and then once it is received it contracts. So while contracting, the blood flows into the left ventricle, and because when the blood flows into the left ventricle, this part relaxes. So that is why when this contracts, this relaxes, and the flow happens to the, so it flows into the, so the blood flows into the ventricle. Now what happens here? Now it has finally reached the left ventricle. Now once blood reaches the left ventricle, the next its destination is, that is, it has to reach all the parts of the body. So who carries this to all the parts of the body? That function is done by the aorta. So can you see the arrow here going? So from the left ventricle again to the valve, here you can see the valve again here, and it is actually carried by this aorta to all the parts of the body. It is pumped to all the parts of the body. So finally the vena cava takes in deoxygenated blood from all the parts of the body, and after oxygenation it is pumped to all the parts of the body by the aorta. Now aorta is the largest artery in your body, and same if you say vena cava, it is the largest vein in your body. Okay, so this is a very simplified explanation about the blood flow. And now can you see here a muscle, that is we have the septum that divides the left and the right side of the heart. That is the left atrium and left auricle and the ventricle, and the right auricle and the ventricle is divided by the septum. And also one more thing, if you see like the size of the heart will be as big as your fist. If you just hold your fist, you can you can, that will be the size of your heart. So I will do a flow chart on this blood flow so that it is more easier for you to understand. So here the first is we have the heart, the deoxygenated blood carried by the, we have the largest vein in your body, that is vena cava, and the vena cava, what does it do? It collects deoxygenated blood. Then by now this vena cava, it collects the deoxygenated blood and it gets into the right auricle or right atrium, and from the right atrium it gets into the right ventricle. Then what happens is, now between this atrium and the ventricle there is a valve. So then from the right ventricle we have it gets into the lungs. So from the right ventricle it gets into the lungs by whom? By the pulmonary artery. Yes. Now then from the lungs, after oxygenation, it gets into, it is taken by, where does it get into? From the lungs it gets into the left atrium. By whom? By the pulmonary way. Now, yes. Now, from the left atrium, again through the valve, it gets into the left ventricle. Then from the left ventricle, it is transported to all the parts of the body. What is transported? That is oxygenated blood. By whom? By aorta. By aorta. Okay, now if you see, this aorta is the largest artery, and also the vena cava is the largest vein. Yes. So here, I hope you are. I mean, this is a very in a very simplified way I have done. I mean, written for you. This is just like a flow chart. So here you have, you see, from the vena cava, right atrium, right till here, you can see these is the this will be the deoxygenated blood. And then from the lungs, after oxygenation, it gets to all the parts of the body. So from the lungs till the body, that will be the oxygenated blood. Yes. So here we can see the deoxygenated blood and the oxygenated blood, right? That is the right side deoxygenated, and the left side we have the oxygenated blood. So that is the reason we have the both the I mean the if you see the structure of the heart, you have the right atrium, then we have the right ventricle, then you have the left atrium and the left ventricle. So, and here you have the valve. So that is why, and then this part which actually separates the right and the left side is the septum. So why is the separation here? Because we need to keep the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood separately. So that is the reason why it is separated, why we have a muscular separation, that is the septum. And one more important thing is, like this in case of vertebrate, that is I mean human beings, it has 4 chambers. And but if you see like fish, I mean like the birds and the fishes have only 2 chambers. I mean it has got only 2 chambered heart. And if you see reptiles, amphibians, etc., has only 3 chambered heart. Like you like you can learn about all these in detail when you reach your higher class, that is especially when in your +1 and +2 level. So since here there is a flow of blood twice, that is, one is for oxygenation, and then the in order to oxygenate the blood, and then you have again the blood coming back after oxygenation. So it is actually 2 cycle. That is, first you have the blood going to the lungs, and again from the lungs it comes back. So it is 2 cycle. So that is why it is known as double circulation. So I'm sure that you are thorough with this I mean this part of structure of heart. This is like a flow chart you can learn, so that when you are asked to write in detail, you can use this flow chart and write it in sentences easily, instead of learning it by heart, because this is like kind of mind mapping. You can, it's easy for you to learn the structure of the heart. So the next class I will do the same biology. I will do the different, I mean the other like parts like lungs and excretory system also. So see you in the next class. If you have any feedback or comments, please do drop in my comment box. And if you are okay with my class, please do hit the subscribe button. Thank you.